What's up, kid?
Spider-Man, how and why are you in my house?
Through that portal over there.
So that's how those psychopaths got in my house.
Okay then. Oh no, I'm almost late for my movie.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about going to see that movie as well.
Oh wait, I can take you there.
I don't know about that.
Come on, don't be chicken.
Fine, let's go. Alright guys, let's swing on into the Spider-Verse. Alright, so Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse. Going into it without doing any spoilers, this movie tries to do 4 different storylines. A basic Spider-Verse type of story, the death of Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and the origin of Miles Morales. When I say Spider-Man, it's a very basic version of that book, but similar, kinda. And for the most part, this film does well what all those storylines wrapped up in one. Also, for a PG film, it doesn't seem like it's a PG film. Watching the movie and seeing some of the things they say and some of the things they do and some of the events that happen in the film seems like it should be a PG-13 film. But it's a PG film, and, well, don't let the writing confuse you. You're going to go in there and you're like, well, this is... And I did the same thing. I went in there expecting it's just going to be a bunch of fart humor, kids, stupid kid humor, you know? It wasn't. It wasn't. It was very story-driven. Character interaction and character development was nice. It was a good film. It really was. Now, going into more of the little history of this film, when I found out that, they are doing an animated Spider-Man film made by the same people who did Lego Movie, I thought, well, okay. I don't know how I feel about that, but, Spider-Man was going to be in the MCU at the time, so I didn't really care as much. And then I found out Miles Morales was the main focus, and I'm like, okay, something different, something that I personally like. I love the Miles Morales comic book series. It's one of my favorites. In fact, that is when I started reading comics. When they killed off Peter Parker in the Ultimate Comics, and I found out that they replaced him with an African American Latino character, I was hesitant, not because he was black, okay? Because the Ultimate Comics were, they were very famous for killing off characters for good. They killed Wolverine off. He didn't come back. They killed the Wasp and Ant-Man / Giant Man. He didn't come back. When they killed off most of these characters in the Ultimate Comics, they stayed dead. So when they killed off Peter Parker, he should have stayed dead, which he did. We won't get into that. So when they said that they're going to have this new Spider-Man, I was not used to, I wasn't used to a Spider-Man. It wasn't Peter Parker. I grew up reading and watching all these stories about Peter Parker. I wasn't used to someone else being it, right? So but I was interested. I was very interested in it. I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know how they're gonna do that. I'm like, really? They got someone else being Spider-Man, and what's the point in killing Peter Parker off? If you're still gonna have Spider-Man, you're just gonna have to be someone else. It don't make sense. That was my understanding in middle school. So, I read the comic, right? And the way they did it was very awesome. With Miles being there, seeing Peter Parker get killed. And I won't spoil the book because it's an old book, but go read it. Go read the original Ultimate Miles Morales story. It's one of the best comic books I've ever read to this day. It's one of my favorites. And the fact that he couldn't do anything about it, or he didn't, and he died, he feels bad, and it's his Uncle Ben is the original Spider-Man. Like, that's brilliant. I never thought about that. They do such a good job with it. So they do. This movie does a little bit different when they do the death of Spider-Man. They do it a little bit different when Miles becomes Spider-Man and his origin of becoming. It's similar to the comics, but it's also completely different. Right? Also, some of the characters are a little different. You know, like the main Peter Parker that we get. He's a lot older. He's a lot chubbier. He's gone through some personal stuff in his life that if you've seen the trailers, you probably have seen in the movie. I mean, if you saw the trailers, you know what's going on. And then you also had, Spider-Noir, Spider-Gwen, Spider and Penny Parker, and Spider-Ham. And those characters mixed in for the Spider-Verse storyline. This movie is still good. It honestly was. But what I have to say is, I think I personally would have rather had a story that centered around Miles Morales and the Spider-Man Peter Parker. You didn't have to have the Spider-Gwen or Spider-Ham or Noir and all these other ones. For this type of story, I was wanting, Peter Parker's going to train him to be the new Spider-Man for this world. And then he's going to try and send him home. And that was the story. And that's what I thought before I knew it was Spider-Verse. And that's kind of what I was wanting. But instead, it's more... they have to have Miles be the one to send him home, or one of them has to stay back and die. Because if they stay too long in Miles' world, they will die. And, well, we don't really want to see another Spider-Man die. Which is where I want to get to next. This movie actually shows the death of Spider-Man. And I didn't... When they first showed the first trailer, we see Peter Parker's gravestone, and I figure, okay, we are going to get the Miles Morales story. So we are going to see Peter Parker die, Miles is going to be there, and the death of Peter Parker is going to be the lynch point that makes Miles Morales the new Spider-Man. Right? Then they stopped showing that, and it seemed more like it's going to be more of a Spider-Verse story. Really weird. So I had no idea what this movie was about until the second or third trailer. When they killed Spider-Man off, it was just, wow, very different. Now, they make a point to design the Peter Parker that dies differently from the other Peter Parker that's in this story. they give the one that dies blonde hair, so I was like, oh, it's not really your Peter Parker. Even though the Peter Parker that dies is cooler, because he's got this cool Bat-K style hideout slash... God, it's just... Wow. He's got like thousands of costumes. He's got the spider buggy. He's got all these different tech and labs and computers and all this. It looks like Spider-Man's personal bat cave. It is the Spider Cave, and it's cool. And wow, this Spider-Man was awesome, right? It makes you think, well, if he had all these suits and all this technology, you would think, why not take like the Iron Spider suit or something to this mission if it was this dangerous, if he could possibly die? I don't know. They had him die for Miles' story to continue, I guess, so for the linchpin there for him to become Spider-Man. So it all works out. So, just story-wise, we're introduced to the dead Peter Parker first to kind of get us started, but he's only introduced for a few seconds, maybe about 20-30 seconds, and then the main story is about Miles. It kicks in with Miles, and your main focus is Miles for the most part of this movie. We get to see his school life, some of his family life. We see how he gets the powers. We get to see what he personally does, which is, he likes to spray paint stuff. He likes spray paint art. And for the most part, it gives us everything we need to know about this character before he becomes Spider-Man, before he gets the powers, before he gets mixed up in all this crazy crap. When he does get the powers, we get to see comedic antics ensue, and it's funny. We get to see him going back to the place he got bit by a spider, and that's where Peter Parker is fighting the villains, and that's how Miles meets Peter, and that's how he sees Peter die, and that's when he promises him the thing. We won't say what it is yet. Well, he promises him to stop the thing for good, and that's that. Peter dies. He has to become Spider-Man. There's a cool cameo. I won't say yet. And, the other spider characters get thrown in as well. Apparently, from what I'm thinking, the spider characters, either the spider characters popped in before or after Peter died. I'm not sure. Some characters are there before Miles gets his powers. Some characters don't get there until after Peter dies. And some characters are there all of a sudden. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give my score now, so that when I do if you want to stick around for the spoiler stuff, you can. And if you don't, you want to go see the movie, none's gotten spoiled so far. At least not that much. So, I want to give Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse an 8 out of 10. Alright guys, let's go to the spoiler corner. And if you are stopping the video now, I guess I'll see you guys next time. Let's roll out. So the first thing I want to talk about, spoiler-wise, is how's Peter Parker die? So Pete dies. Basically, he's fighting this big, giant green goblin. He's fighting the Prowler. Kingpin is the main villain. And I also see Tombstone in there. And later on, you'll have characters like a female Dr. Octopus and a weird version of the Scorpion appear. But for the most part, Kingpin is the main villain. So Peter's trying to stop it. He's also trying to get Miles out of the way because he's in there trying to save him. But, you know, for the most part, Peter ends up getting the goblin grabs Peter and is pushing him into the portal thing. This big collider that opens up dimensions, and we see that it causes a big explosion. The goblin dies, and Peter's caught in the rubble, and he's pretty much probably gonna die because Miles finds him. He's coughing, but no, he dies because Kingpin finds him and the other villains, and we find out, you know, the reason why Kingpin wants this collider is because when Spider-Man and Kingpin were fighting before this, apparently his family found out what Kingpin was, and his son, his wife ran out, was trying to get away from him, and there was a car accident and they died. So he's trying to find an alternate universe version of his son and wife so he can have them back. And Spider-Man's stopping it again, and he blames Spider-Man for the death of his family. So when he takes Peter's mask off, and, you know, Peter says, you know, it won't bring him back, Kingpin basically just squishes him. He freaking launches his arms straight down on top of him, instantly killing Peter Parker. Seeing that, it was like, did he really do that? Wow. I don't know about that, but okay. That's how they do it. Okay. So that's how Peter Parker dies. But before he dies, he makes Miles promise him destroy the collider for him, please. Because what's really weird is because Miles and Peter meet after or before he dies, before the explosion happens. And he's like, you're just like me, and he's talking about training him and all that already, which sounded a little weird, but, you know, alright. But already talking about training him and all. But, you know, he makes him promise, and Miles leaves, he sees Peter die, and, you know, he goes home, and he's upset, and then the news comes out that Peter Parker has died, and we get this, not really a montage, but this moment, we get to hear Mary Jane talk about Peter. Miles goes to a guest costume store and buys a cheap Halloween Spider-Man costume from the one and only Stan Lee. May he rest in peace. It's a little off topic, but I was playing the Spider-Man Silverline game, or DLC, and there's a little thing for Stan Lee in that, which was really cool. But but the cameo was really weird because it seemed really sweet and nice, and then they did a joke, and it kind of ruined it. And I know they didn't know he was going to die when they made it, but they could have edited that out beforehand, I think, but they didn't. The joke is Miles goes and buys the costume, and he's like, what if it doesn't, can I return it if it doesn't fit? And Stan's like, it will fit. It always fits. Eventually. And then there's a sign next to Stan that says, no returns. And, like, they could have taken the sign out, because it would have made it a lot better. He ends up saying, you know, I knew him. I used to know him. You know, Peter. They could have made it really nice. And, you know, out of context, it is. So, you know, before Peter dies, we have Spider-Gwen, or Spider-Woman, or Ghost Spider, or whatever they call her. They call her Spider-Gwen in the trailers. She's called Spider-Gwen by everybody. In comic, I think they call her Spider-Woman, and then in the movie they call her Spider-Woman. But I've heard some people call her Ghost Spider, so I have no idea what her official name is. If anybody wants to enlighten me on this, go ahead in the comic section below, because I don't read comics that much anymore. I don't even read Miles Morales anymore. I think they've rebooted him or whatever in the 616 universe, so I don't care. If Bendis isn't writing Miles, I don't care. He's over DC doing Superman, ruining Superman. Yeah, I was reading Superman and he's ruining it. I don't like it. Anyways, so where were we? Yes. So we see that Gwen Stacy is going to Miles' school. She's there because she feels like she's supposed to be there. I'm guessing she came there first. Then, when I'm gonna say this, before, the reason why Peter goes to this thing is because Spider-Ham and Noir and Penny Parker are already at his hideout. Now, the only thing that makes me think that's wrong is because when you think they would be there to help him do that in the first place, the answer is probably so. So that theory's out the window. So what I'm going to say is Spider-Gwen gets there first. She's scoping around. She feels like she's supposed to be in this place, which doesn't make sense, but okay. Anyways, and, she's part of the humor of Miles learning to use Spider-Man. But she's following him and Peter. And when Miles goes to Peter's grave, we see the fat, chubby, old Peter Parker get involved in, with the police chase with Miles trying to get an unconscious Peter Parker across the city. It's funny. And, Miles and Peter have their interaction where Peter wants to just go home. He don't even care because Aunt May's dead in his universe. Him and Mary Jane have a divorce. He doesn't like kids. He doesn't want to have kids. She does, and that's the reason. He's just a depressed Peter Parker, and it's funny because we never saw that kind of Peter Parker before. I guess we have seen a depressed Peter Parker, but not like this. It's a little bit different. But, he tries to train Miles. Eventually, Spider-Gwen gets involved because they get chased from this facility, trying to get data because Miles breaks this little thing that Peter one that died, gave him, this little chip that would destroy the collider. And basically, when they get the thing back, they meet the Miles' universe's Aunt May, who introduces him to Spider-Ham and Spider-Noir and Penny Parker and in the Spider robot. And basically, Miles has to destroy the collider so all the other spiders can go home. And, that ends up happening. But basically, because he doesn't know how to use his powers, Peter's talking about staying behind and he's going to die if he does. And we have to have that moment where that doesn't happen. But we also find out, I knew this because I read the comics, but in the Ultimate Comics, his uncle, Aaron Davis, which is in the movie, is the Prowler. He's one of the bad guys. And when he finds out Miles is Spider-Man and Kingpin tells him to kill him, it's like really weird because he's like he puts his, basically Miles is wearing his cheap Spider-Man costume, right? He's like doing this. He's like, Uncle Aaron, please, Uncle Aaron. And his uncle's like, he grabs his mask and puts it back on him. He's like, and I'm like, is he gonna really try and kill him? He doesn't. And this is a character that gets shot in the back by Kingpin. And I'm like, what? Okay. Okie dokie then. Which also, his dad sees Spider-Man dropping his brother's dead body, so he assumes Spider-Man killed him, so he's on a vendetta for Spider-Man, which is also pretty cool. They kept that. They didn't, in the end, but, we'll just go into the main thing. They try and train Miles. It doesn't work because they're pushing him too hard. Miles finally, when Peter tells him, I'm going to stay behind, he webs him to a chair, and he also has a talk with his dad. Somewhat, his dad tries to talk to him, but he can't talk back because he's webbed up to a chair and his mouth's covered. So, he can't do anything about his dad, but his dad says something to him that basically inspires him to trigger his powers, and he's able to learn them. And it works, He breaks out, he goes to the spider lair, he grabs Peter's old costume, he sprays paint it. That's why it's got like a circle and a weird spider, because spray paint. Like he likes, because that's his art. He likes doing that. So I like that they did that. But we see that he gets in there, helps them, he knows how to do his powers, he sends everybody home, and it's all great. It works. He fights Kingpin, he defeats them all, and that's pretty much it, So, his dad's sitting there giving him, go Spider-Man, you can do it. And, he defeats Kingpin. And the other villains. Also, Green Goblin died when Peter died, so he's not in there. And Tombstone, I think, gets defeated, and Doc Ock gets killed because she gets ran over by a car or a truck. And I think she dies. I'm not 100% sure. I assume she's dead. I don't know what happens to Scorpion. I think he just gets defeated, just like Kingpin and the rest of them. I'm not 100% sure. But it ends with all the characters gone, and Miles is being Spider-Man, and Spider-Gwen asks for his help at the very end. And that's the end of the movie. Just sets up a sequel. So that's cool. And we're going to get probably some spin-offs and sequels from this. They did a good job with this movie. I really enjoyed it. There is an after-credit scene with Spider-Man with Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara. And he travels to the 1960s Spider-Man cartoon. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Swings a web, da-da-da, blah, 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 blah. And they're doing a weird pointing thing, like you're pointing at me. Why are you pointing at me? Are you pointing first thing? I think someone on the internet said that was a meme, but anyways, I'm gonna end the video here. I think I've talked about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse long enough. I still have Aquaman and Bumblebee to do. So, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bobby, out. Alright, let's close this portal for good. Wait a minute. Would it hurt if I actually went in here to see what's actually going on in there? Let's find out.
Whoa!
Alright guys, let's dive on in to Venomverse. No.